Yeah, hello. I was going to show you a very basic style of correct score trading. It's nothing new. There's 1,000 people out there using it every day, and um, it just is going to go to another point I'm going to make later in the video because I was using this method not so long ago, and an event occurred which was quite rare. So I thought I'd just take you through what I was doing, and as I say, there's no it's nothing clever. It's something you might all have already started doing as beginners, or when you're experimenting with the market. Everything's connected really in the correct score market. I mean, if you're backing a few scores, you're effectively laying the others, and if you're laying a few scores, you're backing the others. So I don't think there are any sort of there's no ownership of any strategy. It's just something that I was doing not so long ago. But and that, very simplistically, is to kind of lay the score that you're on as you move through the game, and it has quite a pleasant effect if things go well. Later on, I'll show you that. But the first thing I've got to do is find a game, and I haven't found one because it's Nations League week, and I'm going to do an as-if scenario. I'd probably look at games of around odds of 11 or 12, and the odds after watching the game for a period of time, say 15 minutes, on the 0-0 would probably be into around 9.4, 9.6, if I'd start at odds of 11, say, depending on the game. And that is not always the case. I mean, odds can obviously drift if the game kicks off. And here is an example not so long ago of a 0-0 that I was trading, and it went off about 8.8. It wasn't a game that was particularly there weren't a lot of goals expected, but it did open up at quite a high pace, and it was certainly an open game, and the odds didn't drift, but they stuck at about 8.8 for, I don't know, 18, 19, maybe even 20 minutes. They moved one tick. And if you're thinking about laying that 0-0, a lot of you will know this already, but if you're thinking about laying that 0-0, it's sometimes worth hanging on those extra couple of minutes, because that price suddenly becomes under a lot of pressure. And the game is going on, the price obviously has to erode. And in the time it takes to go for a P, you can go from down to 7, which is kind of what happened. So I can't remember in the end. I don't think I actually even bothered with it, but it can be worth looking at, remembering that, or is worth remembering that. And you've got to weigh it up against maybe missing your entry point if there's a goal. But if you think you've kind of ridden out that opening volley of end-to-end football, then it can be obviously beneficial to say lay, in this case, at 7 rather than around 8.8, 8.6. So that's an aside anyway. So in this case, I would probably look at this game. I've done some pre-match work on my goal modeling, which is very crude. And I've decided just to we'll lay £25. Oops, I don't want that. £25 at around 9.6. So now we have a liability of £215. Got £25 profit on all the other scores. You could decide right now to lay a 1-0 or 0-1 if you think the game is one-sided, or you could take some of this 25 and put it on 2-1, 1-2 if you thought maybe it looked like both teams were going to score, and you think that in the first instance that might happen. Or you could obviously spread this £25 or more or less of it on some of the higher scores. Obviously, in doing that, you'd be adding to your 215 liability slightly, but it's just there are many options open to you. But the way I do it and the way I kind of look at these games when I haven't got much else on is just to look at the scores and kind of lay the score I'm on. So go follow the match through. And as I say, I'll mention, there's another issue I wanted to mention about it later in the video. But so we are nodding along nicely, the game's 0-0, it's quite open, and we feel there's going to be a goal. And sure enough, a little further into the game, we'll say about, I don't know, 7, because these 1-0 odds will be also contracting as the game moves forward. Portugal go ahead, and we're looking at the game, and we just for a little while we think, you know what, there's going to be another goal, Portugal well on top, we will lay that. So we've around 6.8, say, we've made our decision. And now our liability is 120. We've left the 1 or the 215 behind, and we've also doubled our profit on the other scores. We were 25, we're now 50. And as luck would have it, because this is an example, of course, there is a goal quite close to half time. Portugal indeed go 2-0 up. We're now at, let's say, quite close to half time, be about 4.9, let's say. And you are pretty convinced that there's going to be a goal in the second half. You could wait until the second half. You could see how the game opens up, decide that you may want to go in or not. But the kind of beauty of it now is that you've at odds of 4.9. Pity I can't show it here because obviously this game isn't even on yet. But you've got quite a long time before you can look at the game and still clear your liability if you felt the game went flat. So you could wait all the way, a long way into the second half, towards the end of the game, and say, you know what, I'm gonna get out of this. Let me just use it. I'm just gonna guess here. And 75, let's say, and just put my £75 potential profit on that score because I don't like it anymore. I'm going to come out around scratch. Or you may say, I've got such good value, £47 liability, £75 profit, odds of 4.9. I'm well in there. I'm going to leave things as they are. I've got my kind of value and I'm happy. Now, of course, games can stick on a score. They can stick at 0-0, they can stick at 0-1, 1-0. Things aren't always going to go your way, and you have to decide. You have to look at that game carefully, and then also decide what's happening in play. But it's not you can cut up the pie however you like, and you can fiddle around with all different scores. You can populate the market at different points with stakes, or you can kind of do what I do and just rather boringly lay scores accordingly. But it is just something I do. But the kind of one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this rather basic form of trading is because I was doing it the other day, and the kind of the worst thing did actually happen. Not just once, but 3 times. So it just goes to show that you have to be prepared for that sort of thing. And I'm going to find my results here. So I was looking at this German Bundesliga block of games, and I managed to pick out Mainz-Wolfsburg as the match to go into, partly because the other odds on a lot of the other teams are very high, but that ended up as a 0-0. And half an hour later, I went into this Italian block. I started looking at these, or I had been looking at them, and I'd already decided that Atlanta, Torino, and Cagliari, Sampdoria were the matches, and I was watching them for a bit. Probably, I was fiddling. That is a danger, because I think I was still, I was still switching between a lot of the games, and that can be a problem. Maybe you don't always get a feel for it, but goals were expected. It was a pretty open game. Italian games have just as many goals as English games. They're not. It's not a bad league for goals. I think the great Maldini or the old Italian teams, or maybe national teams of the past, kind of gave Italy that kind of aura about scoring a few goals and defending a lead, and it's probably true a long time ago. But in their league, it's a league that's kind of full of goals. But anyway, not today, or not for me anyway. It was I surgically managed to pick out another 2 nil-nils, and I've had if it had been interspersed with another few games, it wouldn't have seemed so bad. But this was 3 in a row. As a treble, it was 2,144 to 1. I could have put a tenner on it and made myself over 20 grand. But it didn't really bother me, because I know as a punter and a trader that if you bet long enough and at high enough volume, you are going to hit a bad run, just as you're going to hit a good run. And this was illustrated actually, because when I put them into my rather dodgy results sheet, because it's not, as I say, it's not a sort of to trade I do a lot of. I'm usually looking at other things in the correct score market if I think there's an edge, or the correct score market, or I'm looking at the match odds. I noticed that in the last 60 or 70 bets, I'd had 3 nil-nils. So it was just a correction. I was just due this kind of little bad run. And it can manifest itself in different ways. I mean, a long time ago, I remember I think I was betting on horses, and I was sort of testing out a sort of favourites method. I really didn't. The strategy I didn't feel comfortable with. I don't like actually betting horses at short prices, but I'd hit, I think, 10 or 11 losses in a row at around even money, and I knew even then that could happen, because it was a high volume kind of thing, high volume testing, and you had streaks of sort of 15 wins or 16 wins, whatever, in the past. So it was just within the realms of probability and acceptable kind of norm. But the problem is you can hit these streaks any time, and if you're relatively new to Betfair or betting or even trading, you might hit 3 in a strategy as simple as laying 0-0. You could conceivably hit those 3 0-0s at the beginning of your kind of career. It would be very, very unusual, but it could happen, just as you could hit 10 losses in a row at evens. And I think you'd be well within your, it would be reasonable to kind of throw the toys out of the pram and jack it in, because you think, oh my God, I thought I was good and I'm useless. And by the same token, there are plenty of people out there who are not particularly good punters, not profitable, not necessarily betting high volume, and probably making a bit of money every football season. And that kind of bad run just hasn't appeared yet, because of the low volume and the luck that they've had. So I'm always sort of sad when I think about the sort of betting road littered with good punters that gave up and bad punters that are just lucky and will probably one day have to give up because they will lose, but they've had a pretty good run. And good luck to them. I mean, I'm not bitter, but it's just an interesting point. So yeah, find your little niche in whatever market you trade. Be prepared for those losses and try and move on from them. Try to ignore the winning streaks and the losing streaks, unless of course you are hitting them with such regularity that there's probably something fundamentally wrong underpinning your strategy or your way going about things. It's worth bearing in mind. So I hope you got a little bit from this, and good luck. Cheers.